It's several weeks into the new year. I just got around to finalizing my goals for 2023. If you're wondering if it's too late to set yours, I say it's never too late. If you need a little nudge and motivation today to help you set your goals for the year, in this video, I'm going to share how I set my goals up using the MakseLife goal setting system using their A5 companion notebooks. But first, disclaimer, I want to say that I'm not an expert in setting goals or even achieving them for that matter. I'm just a married mom of 4 who's very new to goal setting still. And today I am going to be sharing my actual real life goals for the year. And I am going to be explaining as best that I can how I came up with them and the process that I used to go about setting them. If you're interested in learning more about MakseLife, I'll go ahead and leave a link in the description to their website as well as to their goal setting series they did. It's a 3-part video series that explains their goal setting process, and it's good for whether you are deciding to use their system or if you are going to try and do it on your own. First, if you are new here, hey, my name is Lauren, and the MakseLife system, if you are unfamiliar with that as well, I purchased their companion notebooks, and so the companion notebook system comprises of these 5 notebooks. There's 4 of the quarterly books, and then there's the instructions and goal setting pages. Primarily in today's video, I am going to be showing you the reflections that I did for the end of the year because that helped me to jump into setting my 2023 goals. I might show you a little bit of what I've got going on in here, but if you want to see a full setup of the first quarter for the MakseLife Companion Notebook, I'll go ahead and leave a card up here for you to check that out. Okay, to begin my goal setting, I decided to start with their year-end reflections book that they gave as a freebie for the launch day orders this year. And it's really just a really small notebook with some prompts that help with figuring out how the year went. And based off of those answers is how I primarily was able to determine what I wanted to work on in 2023. So I'm gonna go ahead and share those. I went ahead and blocked off anything that I felt uncomfortable sharing, but I am showing you my actual process here because I thought that would help if you're still trying to figure out your goals and whatnot. If you do hear any clanging noises in the background, my dryer is on. Sorry about that, nothing I can do. So this book started with a compass assessment. The MakseLife system has compass assessments throughout, and you're supposed to complete one every quarter. So this would have replaced a year-end one. If I would have been in the MakseLife system last year, this would have been a Q4, I would say, or reviewing my entire year. Since this does say year in review, it's technically how do I feel about the whole year as a whole? But technically it's really how you feel at the end of Q4. And so I dated it here that this was the date that I set this, and I basically just picked how I felt just on a scale of 1 to 10 about each of the categories of life. And the MakseLife categories are personal, fun and rec, work and learning, family and relationships, health and wellness, spiritual and personal growth, financial and physical environment. There are no questions that go along with a compass assessment when you do it like this. And so based off just me thinking 1 to 10, how I feel, that is how I rated myself. And then what I did was I went back to the beginning of 2022 when I was in MakseLife at the start of last year also. I pulled those numbers out from my compass assessment then to fill in here and was able to compare how my scores increased or decreased from last year. And looking at this, I was able to see that the area of life that I felt increased the most was my fun and recreation. And then the one that I felt went down was my financial. So this is just good information to kind of know what I might want to consider going into the year. So then each page moving forward in here has prompts. And so on this page, it was wanting me to focus on the wins for 2022. It says, what were my wins? What accomplishments did I have? And so I listed out my wins and accomplishments. And then here, what were the highlights from 2022? And I listed out some highlights from my year. And next we had, what challenges did I overcome this year? I listed a few challenges that I overcame. And then what did I learn about myself? What am I most proud of myself this year, some lessons that I learned. Then I went through growth. How have I changed and how have I grown from a year ago? And then the gratitude. What am I most grateful for in 2022? What's working, what's not working? The things that work well in my life currently. I listed these out. And then what things are currently not working well in my life. This was the last page I completed. I ended up skipping over it and coming back to it 2 weeks ago. But the majority of these reflection pages and what I filled out in here, I did towards sometime in December. I did them. I gave myself like the entire month to work on it because I decided that I wasn't going to have like my goals set and start on day one of the new year, that I was going to use the Lunar New Year as my start date. And I'll explain a little bit more about that reasoning in a minute. But the impact that I want people to, how do I want people to experience me? In what ways do I want to create an impact in the lives of my loved ones or the world at large? What adjustments do I want to make in my life in 2023? And then here are some more reflections. 3 words to describe 2022. I chose pivotal, creative, and driven. The words to describe how I felt in 2022, I wrote apprehensive, honored, and calm. The words to describe how I want to feel in 2023, secure, calm, and connected. What I am most excited about for 2023, listed some things. What areas of my life do I want to focus on in 2023? What am I going to say no to? What am I going to say yes to? What am I going to stop apologizing for? And who or what will be my support network in 2023? And then this page here is a section they gave us for writing a letter to me. And it explained to write a letter to yourself, use it as an opportunity to remind yourself of what you're working towards and why, to give yourself words of encouragement or to channel a message from your future self. Have fun and be kind to yourself. This is not a new concept to me. I actually did a letter. I wrote a letter to myself last year. I wrote one from the perspective of like me of right now, talking to the Lauren of early 2022. And I wrote that in a health and wellness planner, a planner that I had set aside as being my like health and wellness planner for the year. For this letter to me, what I wanted to do was do like a similar thing where this is my life 1 year from now, and it's like me a year from now talking about how the year went. And then after I wrote it, I went through with all the Moxie colors of the different areas of life, and I highlighted like what was related to what category to kind of see if there was a balance there. And clearly there is. About the only thing I didn't mention in here was anything to do with my house, my like physical environment. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but it sort of makes sense. You'll see why when you see my goals and stuff. Okay, so then from there, this is where I ended up coming to and creating like a brainstorm for goals. Again, this whole process, I didn't sit down and do in one day. It was over the course of several weeks where I'd come up with just random in the middle of the day. All of a sudden I'm like, oh wait, like I could add that to a goal for this category. And then I just randomly added the things. And then once they were all put in here, I went through and I put like an M for the ones that I felt like were maintenance goals that according to the MakseLife system, these are goals that help to maintain how I'm feeling in that category. That if I were to neglect to do those things, then it would like negatively impact my score and how I feel about that area of life. So I already have a lot of things. If you saw all the things that were going well, I have a lot of things that were working, and these are things that I absolutely need to maintain so that at the end of 2023, I'll feel like that area of life wasn't affected negatively. And then I also went through and put a little P next to ones that are maybe like newish ones or goals that are not necessarily like habit related, but it's just like a one-time sort of thing. And then I went through and I highlighted things that I felt were stretch goals that I felt like something that I probably wouldn't do unless I like really put a lot of thought and focus and pre-planning ahead of time for it. It's something like this, for example, going on to the EC store and combining it with like my birthday celebration. That's something, both of these things, like celebrating my birthday is something that I'm terrible at doing. And then I've been thinking that it'd be fun to take a trip to the EC store for a while now. And I thought, why not try and combine that and make that like one of my stretch goals. And you can see there's not really many. I actually have a stretch goal over here covered up. And the other stretch goal is this declutter and organize paper. I have these piles of papers that I've been meaning to go through and purge and just figure it out. Plus, like, there's just all the paperwork that goes along with managing a household in general, as far as like personal documents for each family member and financial documents and things like that are actually important. I need to go through all those things, and I've been putting it off, and it's just kind of like been eating away at me for a few years. And so I'm like, you know what, that needs to be like, obviously that's a stretch goal, because if I've been putting it off for a while, it's something that I'm purposely ignoring. So that's something that I know that once I've got that done, I will feel so much better, and I want to really focus on getting that done. But that was kind of like the order to this madness. I know it looks insane, and I know it looks like a lot of goals, but when I show you like the final version, you'll see that like this turned into something that made a lot more sense. So yeah, from there I ended up kind of creating this spread to kind of help me figure out how I wanted to lay out the goals in the actual like section here for the annual goals. And I decided the best way to do this would probably be to split it up between like habits and just like the other stuff on another section, so that I could easily see like, these are the things that I'm gonna have to like work on regularly, and then these are the other things that I have to like I have to actually put more thought and effort into figuring out when am I going to work on those things, either because it's like a new-ish thing for me, or it's not something that's like a habit, like going to the Erin Condren store and making that like a birthday celebration. That's not like gonna happen all the time. And the same thing with like the paper clutter. That's not something that's like I cannot do this all in one shot. And I think that's where my mindset was for a really long time, is that like I have to sit down and do it all at once. But I think I'm finally in that space where it's like, no, I can do it a little at a time. And as long as I like plan like this is the little bit that I'm gonna do today, then that's gonna help me get there by the end of the year. So it's not like, let's just do it all at once and overwhelm myself and do all the paper in the house for the there's not enough hours in the day to get it all done in once. So yeah, this is where I mapped out and then I highlighted the things that I thought would need to be ones that have to stand out on my goals so that I don't forget them. Because again, the habits I'm separating out, because a lot of these habits are things that I've already been doing, and the only reason I'm putting them in there, I could technically like not put them in there, but I don't want to forget them. There's a lot of little parts to some of these, and I don't want to forget. And I'll explain in a little bit like why that's important for them to be there. But I just wanted to show you the evolution of like, it went from a brainstorm, and actually I had a lot of sticky notes in here too at some point, or I would write down something on a sticky note and then pop it over here, and then just eventually it all got written in. Once I went from this, then I sat down and worked on filling out those in here. But there are some pages in here first that I completed before I finalized my goals. Of course, I read through the how-to and the information, and then I did the compass assessment again. Okay, so the compass assessment that is in here is accompanied by a bunch of questions in each area of life that you are going to score yourself 1 to 10 based on each question. There are 8 questions, I think, in each area of life. And I'm not going to show you the questions because I don't want you to see like my answers. But right here you can see like the general gist of it. And if you paid attention to what my numbers looked like in the other book, you'll see that I scored myself a lot higher than I did when I was answering them without like all the little questions. Sierra, the founder of MakseLife, basically tells us to not dwell too much on what these numbers actually say and try not to give like too much meaning behind them, because it's really just meant to be like a guidepost to help you figure out what do you want to work on. And clearly, based on this map, it looks like I've got everything figured out and that my life is, you know, perfect, and I probably don't need to work on much, which is far from the truth. It's just more of a reflection of how I'm feeling about my life in general. And so I am kind of like taking this with like a little grain of salt, because, and actually I'm kind of like surprised that after going through the questions that this is how high my scores were. But I think a lot of it comes from the fact that like I said, I have a lot of these habits and things in place already, and I'm already in the mindset of like I'm on my way to reaching those goals. And so that's probably why I feel good about those areas of life, because I've already made a lot of changes to get me to where I want to go. The intentions page, I didn't actually fill this out entirely because I went through the reflections pages and I didn't get around to like looking at those and looking at this at the same time and kind of seeing like if I already answered the questions, and I think I kind of already did. Yeah, and so I just haven't filled that in, and I probably won't come back to do it, honestly, because I don't really want to necessarily fill this out. Although this is something that I'm supposed to return to as often as I return to the annual goals. So I'll likely go ahead and do that after I'm done filming this. But the word of the year that I chose, which I ended up choosing like right at the last second, like when I got to this page and just kind of flipped to it and I thought about it. It's been kind of like ruminating for a while, just the idea of having a word of the year. And then so I ended up landing on progress. And then just like 2 days ago, I ended up coming across this quote that says, "Progress is not achieved by luck or accident, but by working on yourself daily." And I thought, oh my God, that was like a sign that I picked the right word. So that is my word of the year. And then everything, all the goals and just everything that I'm working on can all be tied to like progress. And you see, I underlined some things. I didn't have a highlighter with me when I was reading through this, but I underlined some things that stood out to me. This is the section on like what types of goals. And so then here's the breakdown of the annual, monthly, and weekly actions of the MakseLife system. So let me explain a little bit about the process, the order in which the things are going to get done, and how I'm going to use this system. So you just saw me show you like all the reflections that I went through and all the questions and the prep work and the compass assessment and that kind of thing. And then so now it comes to I've set the annual goals, and then once the annual goals have been set, it's not something like you just don't look at, because obviously this isn't a separate book, and the way that the system is designed is for this. And I'll show you in a blank one to not confuse you. But so each quarter book has, 3 months, and so you'll get a monthly goals section for the month. And then so what'll happen is every month I will pull out my annual goals and pull out this blank spread for the goals for that month, and I will look at my annual goals and I will, based on that, figure out what my goals are going to be this month. I'm also going to be looking at the goals from the past month to see if there's anything from last month that I want to carry over into the new month. And then once that's figured out, every week we have weekly actions. And so the way you're supposed to figure out your weekly actions is you're supposed to, every week, after you've reflected on the past week, you look at your monthly goals and you figure out what actions do I need to take this week to get me closer to reaching my monthly goals. And then during the week, you've got your weekly actions that you're working on. What I'm doing is I'm putting these weekly actions into the week spread of my planner, like putting it in there as far as like once I've got these all set up, then I'm gonna map out when those things are gonna happen. And then during the week, I'm only gonna be looking at this. Every day I'll look at this when I go to set up one of my daily pages. So then every day this ends up being like all I'm looking for the day. So let's go back again to explain in case you kind of got a little lost. This is explaining like how I am actually going to make sure that my goals get done, because writing them down in a book and then never looking at them means it's not going to happen. So here's my daily planner. To get the information I need for the daily, I'm looking at the weekly, right? And then this weekly page is going to be a combination of whatever happened in the month, like whatever's happening that week from my month view, because I use this month view to put in like appointments and things like that. So I'll look at that week, put in the appointments, and I will look at my weekly actions that I need to set up before I do the week. Look at my weekly actions, put those into the weekly planner, and then like from the weekly actions backwards, we're going backwards. In order for me to figure out what my weekly actions are, I am looking at my monthly goals. And then once a month, to figure out what these monthly goals are, I'm coming to this little instruction book that has my annual goals in it. Gotcha? Does that make sense? I hope so. If it doesn't make sense, let me know in the comments. Okay. So after this explanation page in here, there is a section of things to consider in each area of life. And so before I actually like finalize all the goals, I did look through here to kind of use this as a memory jog. And this is actually a great memory jog page that you could, because these pages are perforated, you could rip these out. I could rip this page out and stick it in the back pocket. These have a back pocket. I could stick this in the back pocket here of whatever quarter I'm in. And then that way I will have this with me so that when I sit down to do my weekly actions, if I need like a memory jog of the things that are going on, I can use it. Or when I sit down to do my monthly goals, I can use this as like a memory jog type thing. But what I did was I went through each area, and the reason, how I used it in this instance was I was trying to help me figure out like what area of life certain goals are going to go into. And because there's a little bit of overlap sometimes, so I went through and highlighted the things that pertain to a goal that I probably have, and then that helped me know that like that goal is going to go to like that little section. So that's kind of like what that is here. Here I thought about doing a mind map with all of these little words, but I might not do this. So a lot of people use this as just like a brain dump, kind of like what I did in the reflections book. But since I kind of did all that brain dumping and brainstorming and all that stuff there, I technically didn't really even need to use this space, but this space is here for whatever you want to use it for. Okay, so now we are going into what my actual annual goals are and how like I put this in here. And it kind of looks crazy, I know, but let me walk you through it because there's multiple parts to it and it seems like a lot, but it really isn't. So each annual goal section is broken down into like the category of life, and then you have a line that says focus, and then you can list out what your focus is in that area. So for personal, my focus is progress over perfection. Then I listed out the habits, and then over here I listed out things that they might be habit related too, but these are kind of like newer things that I want to work on, progress goals, things that maybe I wasn't working on before. Specifically under personal, because I tracked my yoga minutes last year in 2022, I have numbers every month for like how much time I spent on my yoga mat each month. So what I'm planning on doing in order to achieve this goal of increasing my yoga minutes in 2023 compared to 2022 is I am planning on going back to my numbers from last year, and in the month view or in the monthly goals. So when I go to my monthly goals, I'm going to put on here more than, and then a number yoga minutes, and that number is going to be what the number was from 2022. And then that's going to help remind me that as I track my yoga minutes this year, I can kind of see, am I on track to beating that number and doing more yoga this month than I did last year this month. And I figured that's like the best way for me to improve my number year over year is to, since I have the numbers from each month, to compare each month. So as long as I improve, even if it's like 1 minute, if I do 1 or 2 minutes better each month compared to like last year, then overall at the end of the year, the number is going to add up, and it's going to mean I did more yoga minutes this year than last year. So that's how I'm planning on like breaking down that one. And then really all the rest of these are things that I'm already doing. So like my daily yoga practice, my afternoon resets. It's like a break that I do in the middle of the day, specifically done like in the carpool lane. And my resets are intended to be a time where I'm not consuming, other than like maybe reading a novel if I feel like I want to. Otherwise, it's a time for me to give my brain a break and maybe just sit and just allow my thoughts to wander, maybe journal, or heck, even like take a nap if I'm like exhausted. So that's what an afternoon reset means. 7:30 p.m. wind down. This is like an automatic thing that happens on my phone. My phone goes into do not disturb at that time. And then I have my apps using the screen time feature set to lock up, and like the time limit ends at like 9:30. So that if I try to go into an app, then it'll like tell me your time's up. And then it becomes like an extra step to like allow me like 15 minutes or allow me 1 minute or whatever. The reason behind this wind down is so that I, again, am kind of like creating a hard stop and reducing the types of things that I am exposing myself to towards the end of the day, so that my brain can quiet down and wind down. If you are a content creator, or if you are like an entrepreneurial person, and like you know that like your brain can like go all the time with all the ideas and all the things. So that's kind of like part of me trying to protect myself from like opening up an email and then maybe like, you know, it started me going down the rabbit hole of thinking of all these different ideas for something that I can write about, or a video I can create, or an Instagram post I can make, things like that. And or on the other side of it, if I'm opening up like a personal email account and seeing something where, I don't know, maybe I'm getting a shipping notification for something that I forgot about, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot about this auto delivery item and I didn't budget for it this week. And then like that like spikes, you know, it'll spike my cortisol, and it'll take a couple hours. If you don't know this, when you experience something stressful and your cortisol spikes, it can take several hours to come down. So with my bedtime goal of being like 10 o'clock every night, I have to protect those hours before bed. And actually, that's also at the end of the day is when I do my yoga too. So that's the reasoning behind that. And again, this is a habit. Those first three, those are things that I do all the time, that I've been doing for a while, that I have to maintain and stay on top of. The weekly and daily planning is also something I've been doing for a while now. So the weekly actions and setting monthly goals, those are two like newer things with the MakseLife system, because even though I started 2022 using MakseLife, I ended up feeling a little bit burnt out by March. There's a whole lot of reasons behind that. I think that the process in which that I went through this year to set up my goals, specifically being I didn't decide to have the year start on January 1st, and I decided that my year would be the Lunar New Year, which is January the 22nd, giving myself that extra time to set goals, because January is crazy. If you have kids, then especially if they're in school too, then you know they only go to school for like half the month, and then they're home, and then you've got the holidays, and you've got like presents to wrap, deliveries to receive, places to go, parties to attend to. If it's not like a party that you're doing, or like a friend of one of your kids is doing a party, or just all these holiday activities that can happen on top of usual life, then that time of year for me is not the right time of year. I learned from like last year. I think like because I forced myself last year to just go through and set up all my goals, then that when the year started, I was just like, my brain was broken for lack of a better word. And then it just wasn't the best way to start off the year. And I think I'm just like in a much better headspace as far as being able to handle like the way I broke it down. And I just think it's going to be better this year, and I'll make it through the whole year. If you're watching this video like months from when I recorded this, then hopefully there are a bunch of videos out already of me setting my monthly goals and setting my weekly actions and that kind of stuff. And you can see like my journey through the system and progressing through the year with this goal system. If not, then I guess I made a mistake again, or something came up, because you know, things can happen. Life can just dramatically change in an instant, and you know, a life circumstance can happen, and if you hear emotion in my voice, it's because I'm thinking about something specific. Life can happen, and it can just kind of completely derail you for months or weeks at a time. And so should something dramatic happen, I might end up taking a pause, but I would hope that I do pick it back up again once I start feeling like myself again. So I do have that like mindset right now of realizing that my grandmother's old and something could happen. This year, we've been preparing ourselves for years, honestly, and so it just feels like every year it's kind of like a little bit more difficult it feels like every year it gets a little bit more like, it feels a little bit more serious. Not that like anything's wrong with her, but it's just like, it just feels like the clock is ticking, and it just feels like there really can't be that much more time left. So anyway, that was me going off on a tangent, but like that's real life, you know. Like if you find yourself in a place right now where just like stuff's hard and you are coping with just the things that have happened and you're just in survival mode, then just know that that's okay, and that there's nothing wrong with having a goal of every single day to just like get up and brush your teeth. You know, baby steps. Like goals don't have to be these big grand things. They can be maintenance goals, things that just kind of like help you kind of just stay where you're at and maintain like what's going on right now, and what's working right now, and that kind of thing. That's my 2 cents on that. Weekly social media breaks. So that's something that I've been doing again for a really, really long time. It's on Sundays. I do not use Instagram. Sometimes I do still watch a YouTube video, but I've been trying to do better about like really intentionally like not consuming any kind of social media, even though that's like the least social media-y thing. But it kind of can put me in a headspace of like thinking about content creating and stuff like that if I do watch YouTube videos, or hop into the app. So it's kind of like a way for me to protect myself and try and create like a balance between work and a personal life. If I don't give myself those breaks, I feel less creative when it does come time for me to actually like do work. So that's just my that's something that was working, and so I want to continue to do that. And down here, I really like this question: how will my life improve by reaching these personal goals? So it asks you that for each area, and I like this because it helps put into perspective the why behind the goal. That's exactly what it is. It's the why behind the goal. Why do you want this to happen? Like if you can't really understand why these matter to you, then you're probably less likely to even like really work on this, because if they don't matter enough for you to have a why behind it, like you're just doing it because like it's probably something I should be doing, then it's not gonna happen. You're less likely to feel motivated to even like work on it. For me, I wrote that I'll feel less stressed throughout my day as if I continue to work on all these. And that's absolutely true, because I know my life is way less stressful now that all these things have been implemented in my life. And let me also say this, I did not one day wake up and be like, let me start doing yoga every day, and let me do an afternoon reset, and let me also do a 7:30 p.m. wind down, and let me start daily planning and weekly planning today, and let me start MakseLife, and let me also take me, like, this is like an evolution of a few years of my journey of getting myself from like feeling super stressed out and anxious, and that from being burnt out by, you know, just a mom life, and just realizing that these little things added up over time. So don't look at this and be like, man, I want to get to where she's at. Start with one thing. Like if what you're seeing here is giving you some ideas for goals that you can work on, pick one, just pick one, and really work on that. And then the rest of the goals in each area of life should be things that you're like already doing, that you like working on, but like pick one like new thing and do that. Because for me, like one of the things that was like a trickle that helped me establish a bunch of other habits was the daily yoga. I decided one time to do a 30-day journey with Yoga with Adrienne, and then after doing that 30-day journey, I realized that I can create habits. Before that, I used to think habits were stupid, that there's no way that I can actually do something consistently. Once I completed that challenge, it kind of like changed my mind and made my mind realize that I can do something every single day and it not be boring, or I can do something consistently and my life doesn't fall apart, or it wasn't dangerous to me. Because that's what our brain will tell us. Our brain, whenever you try and start something new, your brain is going to do everything possible to tell you that like that's dangerous because you've never done it before. We don't know what life is going to look like if you do that. So it's going to try and come up with all kinds of excuses. But in your head, you know that, like, if for example you want to do yoga every day, you know that yoga is not dangerous. I mean, obviously, like, make sure you check with like a doctor and make sure that like you can actually like do yoga movements and that they would recommend it, and just listen to your body and things like that. But like for the most part, doing yoga is not dangerous. So I set up habits here. I decided what I would do to call out the stretch goals was to stick like a sticker. This is one of those 2-hour time blocks from Planner Kate, and pop those in the corner on the ones that have like a stretch goal. And then these are also Planner Kate stickers. These habit stickers are from Knockout Print Shop. Yeah, so habits with, you know, work, weekly YouTube videos, keep sending my email. Like those are things I'm already doing. Like all of these things I've been doing. Family and relationships, date nights, I want to do at least once a week, but at a minimum, at least like 2 times a month. Want to sleep train my youngest. She's 4 and she still keeps coming into the room at night to try and sleep in our bed. It's gotten a lot better over the time. Like she's not getting upset when I bring her back to her bed. So maturity wise, it's in that, it's like close to that time. So I'm hoping that by the end of the year, I won't have her waking up in the middle of the night to try and come to my room to try and sleep in my bed. Because that's what she's doing. Like she knows that at some point my husband is not there and he's at work, and she wants to sleep on that side with me. So she doesn't know what time it is when she gets up. Like if she's sleeping and then she feels like she's been asleep a while, she's coming into my room to check. And I want that to stop so that I can have like sleep where it's just not interrupted at all. Finally, take my girls on mother and daughter dates. I want to be a little bit better about going out with each of them, just us, to do things. Like not like all the time, not like every single month, but throughout the year I want to like schedule, you know, time to do with each of them so I can have that like one-on-one time with them alone. And one of the things, like my 8-year-old, for her birthday, this is what she wants for her birthday. True introvert right here. She wants us to rent a hotel room, just me and her, and just go somewhere and like it be quiet and it's just us. And I told her, that sounds cool. Like, how about we also go to the bookstore too and get some books and then we can read all night? And she was like, yeah. So that's like an outing type situation that I'm gonna do like extra special for her birthday. But that's just like kind of an example of a extreme mother-daughter date, but I want to do kind of other little things of that nature. We want to at least travel to Florida twice. That's always like a given usually, but I gotta make sure I write it down so that I'm kind of paying attention to like, okay, when are we gonna go, so I can start planning the next trip. And I wanted us to do better about thinking about Valentine's Day and our anniversaries, Mother's Day and Father's Day, those sorts of events a little bit sooner than just like a week in advance or even like a day or so in advance. Just kind of getting better about planning more ahead of time. That way we can actually plan for something better than just like going out to eat dinner or watching a movie. That's just the reasoning behind that. And then for the other 4 areas, for health and wellness, the only thing really here that I'm not the best at is this waking up thing. Like when the weekend happens, I tend to sleep in a lot longer than that. Like during the school week, if I'm getting up to take the kids to school, it's like 6:30 that I have to get up. But then when I get into the habit of waking up at 6:30 during the week, and then on the weekend, if I sleep later, it ends up, because I like will end up going to bed later, knowing I don't have to wake up as early. Like it throws me all off, and like I don't know if it's because I'm getting older, but I just don't like the way I feel. And so I want to do better about like a consistent wake up time, even on the weekends, so that I can keep that like tiredness. Because then what'll happen if I sleep too long, then that day that I slept too long, I'm not going to be tired when it's time to go to bed. And then when, Sunday night comes and the kids got to get up early on Monday, then I'm tired on Monday because it took me a while to fall asleep on Sunday because I woke up later. And then, it's just a thing for me. I know for some people that might not be a problem, but that's been a problem and it's been getting to be like a more annoying issue in recent months. So I want to work on that, and I think that maybe having a better consistent like bedtime and wake up time will help with that. I've always been pretty good about like not staying up late, but it's like sometimes sleeping in a little bit too long, and then it makes it to where like I don't fall asleep. It's not that I'm not in bed, I am in bed, but then like I'm laying there and it's like I'm not falling asleep. Monthly massages is something I've been doing for a while. That's like a pain management reason behind that. And that is working really well. It's been working really well for a while. And so I need to maintain that. Then cardio, this is something that I was supposed to work on last year and I totally didn't, because I didn't really come up with a plan. And I also kind of always thought of like cardio as I need to go out for a run, which I have nothing against going out for a run. However, in my area, they have been building new houses like crazy, and the level of construction workers that have been around has made me uncomfortable to where I don't want to go out and run in the neighborhood knowing that they're around. That's 1. And then 2, when it's cold outside, I don't want to. 3, in the summertime, the last time I went running, I had some killer like horse flies chasing me down while I was running, and then those suckers bite hard. If you're not in the South, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you are, you know what I'm talking about. I've always just kind of thought like cardio is like running outside. I used to have a treadmill at one point in time. We haven't had it in a while. That's kind of like why I've kind of put off cardio. But then it occurred to me several weeks ago that, hello, you watch YouTube videos for your yoga. Why can't you watch YouTube videos for cardio? And then I was like, oh my gosh, that's a genius thought. Why haven't I thought of that sooner? So one of the girls I follow, Sarah Beth Yoga, she had a video where she kind of collaborated with Grow with Joe, and that got me to check her out, and her videos are so fun. So I'm working through her beginner workout playlists and sticking to the 15 to 20 minute for this quarter. And then I'm going to bump it up in Q2 and then bump it up again in Q3 and then again in Q4, because my cardiologist she said, we need to be doing cardio 30 minutes a day. And the doctor doesn't tell you this, but logically, and I've read like half of James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, you have to start small. Like you can't just go straight from not working out to working out this many times a week for this much per day, because that's what the doctor wants you to do. Like you have to slowly work yourself up to that. And what's more important is that you're developing the habit of doing it. So even if you just start with 5 minutes of exercise every day, as long as you can stick to the habit of consistently showing up for yourself at whatever time it is you say you're going to do it for 5 minutes, then that's what's more important, is the habit itself. It's not so much the amount of time that you're spending doing it. And so then it's up to you. Did I just spit on this paper? I think I totally did. I am leaving that in there. And I totally forgot what I was saying. Oh my gosh. Anyway, hopefully you understood what I was saying. Vitamins and supplements, that's something I've been doing for a while. Like a multivitamin and then a magnesium. I take magnesium in the morning and in the evening with food. And then what else do I take? I take an omega-3 supplement, and during allergy season I have to take allergy medicine, so to stay on top of that. Spiritual and personal growth. This is mostly MakseLife. My reflections every week, I want to make sure I do those every week, and I do my monthly reflections. When I was in MakseLife in the beginning of last year, I was horrible about the monthly reflections part. And I think one of the ways that I can do better about it is to skip the weekly reflection for that week. So we are actually coming up now on, as I'm filming this, it is January the 19th. And I do believe that this is the week of January the 23rd to the 29th. That's what this page is. And then after this page is the monthly reflections page. Normally the back of this would look like this, and this would be where I would reflect on this week. Whatever this number this week is, this is where I would reflect. However, this is where it's at. So I'm going to do my monthly reflections, and then here is where I would do the weekly reflections for that week, but I think I'm going to skip it because that might feel like too much reflecting, and I'm just going to be okay with it and just see how that goes. See how I feel about doing it that way, because that might help me to actually complete my monthly reflections. And I want to use the previous weekly reflections to help me with the monthly reflections. Okay, I'm hoping this makes sense for you, because I'm trying to make sure this video is helpful as far as explaining the process of setting the goals, and I'm not just sharing with you my goals, because just you looking at my goals really should not give you any kind of value at all, except for it might give you some ideas as to what kind of goals you can have. But I really want you to understand the process in which I want to do these things. Anyway, quarterly assessments is something I want to make sure I do. Monthly inner circle call is just a group thing that I'm a part of. I've been going to those, so those are important for me to continue to do. This daily journal with the JMB Living, it's this journal right here. I actually have a video out about it. If you want to see it, I'll pop it up in a card right here. But this has daily pages in it, and because the format of that journal changed from last year to this year, I decided with the new format change that I would change the way I journal in it. And how I'm journaling in it is I'm using it to future script. So what that basically means is I sit down in the morning, and in the section that says my day, I am writing in how my day went as if I was sitting there at the end of the day. So it's almost like what I did with the letter to my future self in the, in the reflections here. It's sort of like this where Sort of like this where I'm talking as if it already happened. So that's future scripting, and that's kind of what I'm doing in the journaling in here. And I didn't start doing it in the journal right away when January started. One of the things that I know about myself, and it was confirmed to me when I read Atomic Habits, that one goal at a time. If you make too many changes at once, it can be overwhelming, and then you just completely give up altogether. And so I knew that I was gonna need to make sure I was comfortable with the MakseLife. I also was starting a different weekly planner this year, and so I wanted to make sure I was comfortable with my weekly system before I committed to also doing the journal again, because I was doing the JMB Living journal every day in last winter, the first quarter of 2022 and in the spring of 2022 up until about May, when like school got out. And then once school got out, I didn't do it anymore. I didn't get their summer journal or their fall journal. That journal, this one was actually given to me by the owner to review, and I'm so grateful that she did that. And when I got it, I wasn't sure if I would use it or not, but I decided that I would not commit to it right away, but I would try and give it a try maybe a little bit later. So far, the few days that I have used it with the future scripting, it's kind of interesting. It's kind of nice to kind of think about not just how I want the day to go as far as like what things happened or what I accomplished, but how I want to feel. That's kind of how I'm trying to do the journaling. And I put that under like growth mindset, because I feel like there's a lot of talk about manifesting what you want and using that as kind of a way to achieve the goals that you have, and like vision boarding and those sorts of things. And so it's kind of almost like that, where it's like I'm forcing myself to think about the future and using my imagination to describe what happened. And it's kind of nice. So far it's been interesting to stretch my mind in that way and journal in that way, because I've never journaled like that before. And then I wrote that by doing these, I'll be better about making adjustments and staying on top of things that I want to improve. And that's the real reason behind the reflections, is because you want to look back at the week and the things that worked and what didn't work, because it allows you to know like what tweaks do you need to make in order to move forward and maybe make the next week a little bit better than the last one. Or you might find that, week over week, there's just one goal in your weekly actions that just keeps on getting pushed off and get pushed off. And it allows you to kind of assess like, what's the reasoning behind it's getting pushed off? Is this something that I really, really want to do? Or is it just on here because? Then that might end up being a sign that like, okay, I'm going to give myself permission to like completely cross this goal off of my goals, either entirely or put it off for another month. And what you can do is you can use like sticky notes, and you can go through the compass assessment. You can go through the little companion books and go to the month that it belongs in. Let's say you want to move it to March, then you can stick it here so that you have a place for it so you don't forget. And that's actually something I want to go ahead and do, is now that I've got all my goals set up, I want to come through the rest of this quarter and stick in here, like if there's something that I specifically need to start doing in like February or March. Just getting really close to February and setting February goals. That's kind of like too close, but I mean, obviously if I do think of something that is probably something I need to work on in February, I need to put it on a note now. But for March, if like gardening, for example, with my fun and recreation, that's something I probably can start thinking about resuming in March, or at least thinking about there might be some things that I might need to do to prepare for that for when April comes, that kind of thing. And that way it's sort of like already pre-thought out, and it helps the goal process go a little bit quicker. So I hope that makes sense to you, as to like why I didn't only just put on here like the new things I want to work on. That's why I also put all the things that are already working and what I'm already good about doing, because I want to make sure that I stay on top of them, because I've already identified these things as things that are important for maintaining what is going well for me. Financial and physical environment. The financial things, basically just to feel secure, because like last year we had a lot of truck repair issues with my husband's truck. It was a very old vehicle, 2005, and last year it just decided to all the things at once. In all the years we've had it, we've had it since like 2007, like the end of 2007. In all the years we've had it, we've never really had to do major work. We've only had to do routine maintenance as far as like oil changes and new tires, little tiny things like that. And just last year, it just all went to hell, and we had to spend a lot of money on repairs. on credit, some of it, and savings got eaten up for some of it too. And so that really that's really probably why when I scored how I felt about my finances in December, that's probably why I felt like it was a 5. Honestly, it's probably because really of that right there, because it was still very fresh in my mind. Like, actually, we might have came to the conclusion, we'd already bought him a new car by then. By the date that I did this, we'd already decided, like sometime in November, that, you know what, it's time. Like, now it's time to get another one. We'd been like putting it off as long as we could because we still had a car payment on my van, and I kept telling him I want to just be done with that car payment first before we start another car payment. Hey, so if this looks different and sounds different, it's because it is different, because my phone died and I didn't know it died until I was done talking, and I glanced up and I saw the camera was black. So I think the last thing I was talking about was my husband's truck and how it was giving us a lot of problems last year, and we had to spend a lot of money in repairs. So that's the reason why, like, this year I want to focus on feeling secure and rebuilding savings and paying off that debt that we accumulated from all the repairs that we had to pay. And so this year, like right at the start of the year, he got a new job. So our situation right at the very beginning is a lot better as far as like income is concerned. So we should be able to tackle that debt, and we should be able to not use our credit cards anymore this year. I don't see that being like an issue. I feel really good about being able to accomplish this and get to that by the time the year's over. And last, with the physical environment, really my only thing here is to work on this paper purge. I have a bunch of old tax documents that I need to digitalize so that I can toss the hard copies. And then I want to be better about staying on top of 2 things really: my towels and my bed sheets. Like, I used to be pretty good about having and staying consistent with a weekly schedule and my cleaning calendar and all this stuff. I have some videos about that if you want to go look for them. But when my daughter started pre-K and I started really focusing on putting a video every week and creating content and attending and listening to some courses that I got, then I kind of just like pushed all that cleaning stuff to the side as not a priority. And those things are still kind of like not a priority, because in all honesty, my house is very clean and it just looks lived in. And if you were to tell me you're coming over to visit, I could have my house picked up in like less than 20 minutes. And then like to you would be like, wow, this is nice. So it's not really that big of a thing. It's just more of like making sure I stay on top of like laundry and dusting and like cleaning the floors and just like things like that. But the 2 things that I really need to make sure I've noticed over the last couple weeks that I don't like is if I don't stay on top of the towels and the bed sheets, they will smell. I need to make sure that I focus on making sure those 2 tasks happen every week, and it happens like at least a week apart and no longer, because if I go any longer than that, then I'm pushing the boundaries of like it's gonna start to stink. That's just kind of like the honesty of that, and those are really the only things that I want to focus on. I haven't been very good about my plants. I do have the Plant app. I do have some plants that have kind of like taken a turn, and I don't know if it's because I've been neglecting to pay attention to the app to remind me to water the things, but also it's like winter and a lot of them are outside, and so it's hard to know, like, is it just dead, winter dead, or is it like dead? I won't know until spring comes and they rebloom, and that like there's just only so much I can do. I can't control the weather, but that's just where things are when it comes to like my physical environment and that space. Like, I have declutter written here. I don't know if you can see it, but that's just really to remind me that I have things in, like, my kids outgrow things. I have to make sure that I am keeping in mind that like that needs to happen because of like moving regularly for a lot of years. We haven't done that in a while, but because of that habit, like pretty much every year I get that urge to like go through all the cabinets and all the things and look through stuff and decide, is this trash? Am I keeping this? When was the last time I used this? Do I need it? And going about it that way. And I know that that'll happen naturally. It's not something that I actually have to be like, okay, this needs to be something I got to work on. I also have a dedicated space in my closet for things that I want to sell. That's actually the dumping ground for all the things that kind of need to get donated. I just need to make sure that I stay on top of taking those donations to the thrift store and making sure that another thing that's not even on here is our recycling. That's kind of something that's I have to stay on top of because we don't have recycle pickup at the curb. I on my own have decided that I'm going to recycle. That reduces how much our trash is so that we can survive on just the one trash can that we have for curbside. And I keep all of our recycles in our pantry. That actually has accumulated in like the last month to where I have like a month's worth of recycled items that I need to take to get dropped off, and I just haven't done it. And so that's just another thing that like I'll just kind of eyeball and be like, I haven't been in a little while, let me go take it. I don't want to set a date for that as like, this is when I'm going to do it, because I like to pair it with a day that I know I'm actually going into town. And that way I'm not making a trip just for that reason. I like to be intentional with my trips and know that like, if I'm going all the way over there for this thing, what else can I do while I'm here, and try and knock that stuff out all at once, because I don't want to spend, it's a far drive, and I don't want to spend a lot of days during the week making a commute that I don't absolutely need to. So that's just like a little explanation about that. But otherwise, like my house we are renting the one we're living in, and so there's nothing for me to, as far as like I want to repair anything or paint anything. Actually, there is something that I need to paint. There absolutely is something I need to paint. I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna write touch up. Kitchen. Kitchen's not spelled with a T. Come on. I don't know what I did there. My brain was thinking too fast. Kitchen cabinets. The cabinet that we have our trash in, like the paint on it is kind of like chipped off, and it's been needing to like be touched up. I just need to get to a hardware store and get some swatches to try and find a color that matches these white cabinets, because you know there's like 50 shades of white. And so maybe at some point I'll do that this year, but if I don't have it written down there, I'm gonna totally like not even think about it. So I'm glad I remembered that. But yeah, that's all for my annual goals and my like thought process behind setting them up. This space is for a vision board. I don't intend on using it at all. I did one last year, but I don't plan on doing one for this year. I might use that space for random stuff during the year if I find I need something. Hopefully this video was very helpful for you, and I hope that you understand the process of my goals for like coming up with them and how I plan on making sure I execute on them during the year. Make sure you leave me a comment and just say helpful to let me know that you thought that this was helpful, because I didn't want this to just be a video where it's like, here are all my goals. I really wanted to make sure I explained my thought process on coming up with them. Again, if you haven't yet set them up and you're not sure if you want to, like I said earlier, starting small is, I think, the best thing. If you don't even have a system at all, just start with one goal and think of a habit that you can do every single day that is going to help you to reach that, and just do that. Start with that one thing. And I guarantee, like, if you pick something like the 30-day challenge that I did, and you do something every single day, that will like exponentially, I think, set you up for success in establishing habits and future habits, just because it takes a lot of repetitions of something before you really get the groove with it. So if it's something that you're going to do once a week, it's going to take you a lot longer as far as like weeks and months go before it's really set in stone. Whereas if you're setting something up that's like a daily thing, it'll be even less time. I think they say like 60 days is what it takes to set a habit. I think that's if it's a habit that you're doing every single day. Obviously, it doesn't take 60 days to really ingrain it in you if it's something that you're doing just like once a week. But, you know, you do you. And I think it's okay to set habits. I mean, set goals or habits, intentions, whatever you want to call them. Set them whenever you want to, and permission to completely start fresh at any point of the year when you feel like, you know what, those old goals don't serve me anymore. And that's actually how it should be. Your goals should evolve with you. If you grow during the year and you come to find out that like one of the goals that you set at the beginning of the year is something that you do not have any interest anymore in doing, then it's okay to just let that go and scratch that off and see it as like you've grown and you've evolved. It's not a failure or anything like that. It's just more of like you are better understanding of what your situation is at the moment, and it's just not something that you can do. And that's also another thing is like sometimes we set goals and it's something that maybe we absolutely do want to do, but maybe now is not the right time. And so it's okay for you to put something on hold for another time, but really evaluate like the reasoning why you feel like now is not right, because sometimes our fear of something is what's holding us back, and it's never the right time for a lot of things that we want to try and set ourselves up to go do. Like an example, if you want to start your own YouTube channel, like there's never really the right time to do it. It's just record and just put it up, and the more you do it, the better you get at doing it, and it's going to be something that is going to improve over time, and it's not something that you're going to be perfect at, and no one's perfect at everything. Anyway, that was a really long ramble for hopefully something that you got out of. Maybe one of you needed to hear that. Anyway, I again hope that this was helpful, and if you like, you know, goal setting and you want to see more of my journey in this system, I do plan on filming videos. I'm going to be having some plan with me's. I'm going to change up a little bit about how my plan with me's are going to go moving forward. I have some up already where I'm setting up my week and my Erin Condren, and I'm also showing you like my weekly actions. But I think moving forward, I'm going to focus the majority of those plan with me's on setting my weekly actions and my goals, and then kind of speeding through setting up my week and see how that goes for me. I think that might be a better format for how I want to move forward with this channel and my content. If you want to subscribe to see that, go ahead and make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.